Hey, Patreons, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is, of course, our show where we talk to awesome creators and other folks in the pop culture space. Todd and I are joined this evening by Mr. Erik Larsen. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
I love it. Good deal. Well, it's so great to have you here. One of the original innovators from back in the 1990s. We'll just get right on into it. Tell me how you got started in the business.
How I got started in the business?
Yes, sir.
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up with my dad's comic book collection, so those were always part of my existence growing up. So it was really just comics are this thing that's always been there. And then I started drawing as a real little kid, just emulating the comics that I had, and I later got exposed to, hey, there's new stuff coming out, and got a smattering of those. But I really just, for whatever reason, decided I should be making my own, just 8.5 by 11 folded in half. And then I just kept on going with that. And at some point, I thought I was good enough that I could make a go at it. And I had written and drawn a dragon story that I had submitted to Charlton Comics, as because they were doing a book called Charlton Bullseye, which was paying no money, but everybody who did stuff there got to keep the rights to their characters.
Oh, nice.
So that was, like, okay, great. I want to still be able to own this dude. So I did that, and they were like, well, we think your stuff's pretty good, but this comic wasn't selling well enough to continue, even with paying nobody any money. So
it's too expensive to give you no money.
I mean, they were on their last legs at that point. And so it's like, okay, well,
Didn't they sell all their like they had like characters? Was it like the web or I'm trying to remember, it was, or if that was a lot of the DC characters that were
inherited. They had to DC Comics, because Dick Giordano used to be the editor over there years and years and years ago. So that would have been Captain Atom, Blue Beetle,
That's right.
That group of characters. Those were all snapped up. Some of the other characters wound up getting to be owned by the people who created them. So I think E-Man went with Joe Staten and Nick Cutie something. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. Anyway, they ended up owning that. And so I had this comic. It was sitting there. It was drawn. It was ready to go. And through the comic book store that I was in, that I went to up in Bellingham, Washington, I met a couple other people who were interested in at least making a comic, if not trying to break in. And so we self-published a comic book. My dad was a teacher, and he was teaching workshops, and we had a tabletop offset press. So I was actually able to print my own comics.
Wow.
And it was't great. It wasn't a great way to do it.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
The reproduction was terrible. I decided that the interiors were going to be black and white. The covers, we were like, we got to do this in color, but just all sorts of limitations with the material that we had available in terms of how big the paper can be to feed through the press, and just hurdle after hurdle, just trying to figure out how can we make this work. And,
right.
So it was real trial by error thing. And once I had that, then I had sold. We tried to find whoever we could that would give us some kind of publicity. So how can we get this out there? How can we sell this thing? We sold a bunch through our local comic book store, and then we hit up Comics Buyer's Guide and whatever else existed at that point. A couple of people who bought it through the mail decided that they wanted to publish their own comics. And so a guy named Gary Carlson reached out to me, and he was doing a semi-pro comic called Megaton. And that was the first kind of pro stuff I did was co-created a character called Vanguard with Gary, and then each step along the way you just get a little bit of stuff that you can show the next guy,
Right.
and eventually I had a small and a little body of work that I could then be able to get stuff at Marvel. That was the goal. I always wanted to be a Marvel guy. So I met Jim Shooter, and I had corresponded somewhat with Jim Shooter, and he kept giving me this close but no cigar response, which, okay, that's at least telling me I'm close.
Right.
Semi-encouraging. And then I met him at a convention in Chicago, and he was sort of like, "So you're a pro now, huh?" And I was like, "Yes, I am."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Would you like to do a story for Marvel Fanfare?" And I was like, "You bet. Why don't we plot it at the convention?" And he was a little taken back, and he was like, "All right, let's do that." And so we sat down in a hotel bar and banged out the plot for a story that would become Thor 385.
Wow.
Oh, awesome.
That's awesome.
Todd's a big Thor guy. He's a Thor guy, and I'm a Spider-Man guy, which I'll ask you about later.
I have a little tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Mjolnir. Yeah.
There's Spidey.
I got nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Well, you've got a lot of room on your body, so there's opportunities to add on, right? You may know an artist that could do something for you.
Take this shirt off, and you'll see that there's not as much room as you might think.
Nice.
I take my shirt off, and Chewbacca would look at me and go, "Damn, dude."
Yeah.
Chewbacca would speak English all of a sudden. It's amazing. Well, Todd wants to talk to you about Image Comics. Todd, go for it.
So I was in high school in the 90s. So 1990 was my freshman year. I got back into comics because I had found girls and did things like everybody does. But then I heard about all these awesome new artists, new writers that were really changing the game. And I came right in when Image was popping off. I mean, Wizard Magazine was talking about it. I remember seeing all those awesome things. And it was really amazing because I think I remember this, if I remember correctly. All of the creators of Image Comics, including yourself, maybe were at Motor City Comic Con, like in 91 or 92, and I went to the show.
I wouldn't remember that.
It was amazing because I'm like, oh, these guys are amazing. And I'm like, it's just so cool at the time because, creator owned, there was nothing really in that place. Like there was Epic, I think at the time. You had, some independent, like the Pennies. You had Dave Sim doing Cerebrus and a few others, but nobody was really out there championing it. And I remember when
Dark Horse existed and they had barely existed, so they had just started up a couple little things, but a lot of their stuff was licensed stuff too. So it didn't seem like it was quite the creator-owned haven that Image had become.
Yeah. So with that, you and your merry band of Marvel artists really came together. Now, the question became, I seen a lot of like the documentaries and things about how it happened, but in regards to your own experience, was this like you had a bad day at the office, everybody had a bad day, nobody liked your stories, and maybe some you didn't like the dollar amount they were paying you for your stories, and you said, hey, let's have a coffee meeting and talk about this? How did that type of discussion actually happen?
It was very kind of gradual and kind of came together in this long kind of organic kind of way where me, Jim Valentino, Rob Liefeld had gone out to dinner with a guy who was part of Malibu Comics named Dave Ulrich. And Dave and Rob was always enthusiastic and had been wondering if the people who are reading his stuff at Marvel would those guys go over and do stuff at DC? Would they follow me over to whatever? At one point, he had pitched DC on doing a book called Team Titans, which would have featured Speedy and Harlequin and some precursor to Block and just a number of characters. He was just kind of looking around going, okay, this guy looks cool, this guy looks cool, let's put these guys together in a team. And they ultimately didn't end up, I don't know if he passed or whatever, but regardless, he is interested in the idea, would these people follow me to something else? And also, how come everybody isn't doing an X book? That seems to be a popular letter. Why isn't DC doing that? Why isn't everybody doing it? So he had asked Dave Albrecht, would you do a book with me? And Albrecht was, yeah, I do a book with you. I do a book with any of you guys. And that was part of the very beginning part. And then Rob had put together something that he was just going to go and do something with Malibu on his own. And they took out an ad in the Comics Buyer's Guide that was, I think, called The Executioners or something like that. I don't remember the name of it. It was just a one-page ad and had all this, typical Rob Liefeld characters jumping around on it. And Marvel just went ballistic. They were like, they read him the Riot Act. They were like, they were going to sue him. These characters look too much like X-Force. There's way too much whatever. And what he got out of that was probably the exact opposite of what they intended that to be. And he kind of saw blood in the water, like, these guys are scared shitless. We could just walk and go and do something. If he wasn't convinced that he could do something and be big on his own, it seemed like Marvel editorial thought that. So it started really with kind of a small little group. And then once Todd had seen that ad, and once Todd had been aware that, oh, you guys want to do this? Oh, let's then Todd became the militant guy who's out there. You guys better come on and do an image book. Come on, this will be good. So he was actively doing the full court press on anybody who would come within arm's reach. And so then once he was on board, then it was just go, go, go. And then each of us kind of reached out to, well, this guy's my friend, so let me see if he's interested, and let me see if this other guy's interested. And we all kind of put feelers out there, and then just grew and grew and grew exponentially.
Wow. Revolution.
At the time, I wasn't doing a regular book. I had pitched doing a Nova series, and they'd kind of said, oh, maybe we could do this as a mini series. And I had feelers out at DC, and they were thinking, hey, maybe you could do a Lobo mini series for us. So there was some talk of that. So I didn't have a regular gig. So this idea that, hey, want to, do something on my own and try out this, put your foot in the water and see how that feels. And then it turned out, that this thing just exploded. Then there was no looking back at that point.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wild. Yeah.
If you think back and like you're, hindsight's 2020, would you do anything different?
I mean, I would try and get my books out on a more regular basis. I think all of us were kind of going, let's give everybody the biggest bang for your buck. And if you look at my early issues, like the first issue, a 27-page story, and then there was 29-page story, and in retrospect, I should have gone, let's just keep this at a tight 22 or 20, and take those extra pages, roll them into the next issue, and have this book come out on a more regular clip.
Right.
And, hey, let's shove everything we have in this
supersize.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, right. So I do have a Marvel question. I'm a Spider-Man guy. I already said it, and this is going to be heresy. So hopefully I'm not going to hit by a lightning bolt in my basement here. I was never a huge fan of McFarlane stuff. I just wasn't.
Thank God, me neither.
I loved it. Sorry,
but when you came along to Amazing Spider-Man, I liked your stuff better. I did, and I'm not just saying it because I'm talking to you, not talking to him. And I was a young kid, so we were talking. This was in 89, 90, if I'm remembering correctly, when you were on that book. And then his Spider-Man book launched in 1990. I think the adjectiveless one, if I remember the dates correctly. But what I was reading, and whether this is true or whether it's not true, because again, you're getting enough Wikipedia, you stated, or they quoted you as saying that you didn't necessarily kind of enjoy your time with the character. Was there? Talk to me about that. Is that true? Is it partially true? Is it not at all true?
I would say that I didn't think of myself as being a particularly good fit on Spider-Man because I was more of a Kirby guy than a Ditko guy.
Got it.
In terms of my just basic influence and stuff like that, and I tend to butt heads with whoever I'm working with as a writer. So there's always a little bit of that goes on, but I like Spider-Man a lot more than I like Punisher, and so I do feel more of an affinity for that character now certainly than probably at the time where I was just struggling with trying to get it done. But yeah, it's more fun in retrospect than probably at the time. But it was a good book for me. I certainly got to write to work on with a lot of characters that I always wanted to work with, that sort of thing. And I did my best with it. I tried to do all right.
I was a fan. I'm trying to remember quickly. Was the Cosmic Spider-Man? Was that you? Get that first pass at that one?
I did do an issue or two that were part of that, and then you became Captain Universe, but still had the Spider-Man mask underneath.
Right. It's one of the figures in my Spider-Man menagerie, which is on the other side here.
My very first issue was like 10 issues before Todd ever came on the book. I did a fill-in there was a gang war story, which started with DeFalco and Ron Friends, and then it quickly devolved. I think those guys just were like, to hell with you, and left. And then Jim Owsley came over, and he was the writer of the book. Alan Kupperberg drew an issue or two, and then I did a fill-in the middle of that, and then he came back.
Yeah, I never realized that was you. That is one of those arcs that it's like I don't collect a lot of physical comics anymore, but I have that run because I loved the covers. Some of the covers were Michael Zack. I'm a big fan of his, but I had no idea that one of those was you. So I'm going to go back and have another look. That's awesome. Yeah, I always loved that storyline. It was so street level, more so. And again, I was, 10, 11 years old. I've been reading Spider-Man for a year or so. So that's very burned into my memory, but I did not realize that you were involved. So shame on me.
They misspelled my name and everything. Yeah.
Well, that's how you know you've made it.
well, if you're from Minnesota, is it an SEN or SON, right?
They did Eric with a C, where it's Eric with a K.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah, come on.
I have so many opportunities to misspell my name.
I know the feeling.
And speaking of that, I just want to point out one of my favorite covers of Spider-Man is the Deathlock cover. It's so fun. It's so cool looking. I love that to pieces.
Oh, thanks.
So it's a fun character. All right, now Todd, I think he's been chomping at the bit to talk about the big beastie. Do it.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that I do remember that. I believe that. Yeah, you had this dragon character, and then the fact that now being at Image, you were able to bring that character back, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then it made me think of two questions. One is, what inspired you to actually make this character basically have like a character with no memory, turns into a beat cop, but he's got the fin, he looks awesome. But the second part is, then you also got to do a cartoon of your character, which to me is amazing. I love that.
Well, the dragon started off as, when I was a kid, he was a Batman riff. So you can imagine, this is all green, and then he had the little hole where his face was, and he had a big cape, and he drove around in a cool car, and he even was in a cave early on, and he had a utility belt. I mean, the whole the whole 9 yards. And at some point, I just liked him as the superhero guy more than I liked his secret identity. So eventually I just took the characters and had some wizard pull them apart and go, okay, your secret identity is now a separate dude and you're your own guy. And so at that point I could lose the cape and all this other crap and just have him be a green skin guy. And that was kind of his origin stuff. I drew him for since like fourth, fifth grade,
Oh my
up
gosh.
through high school. And then when I self-published that graphic fantasy thing when I was 19, that was kind of the culmination of everything that had happened in all those comics I drew as a kid. So he started off as a regular superhero, and eventually I'd introduced more superheroes. And eventually there was this uh, government super team that he was part of, and then his wife died, and then he was raising this little girl as his own and stuff like that. And then I did this graphic fantasy story. So I had this story, and my goal at Image was I want to eventually work my way towards those same two stories that I had done in graphic fantasy, but I'm going to get there in a different route because the comics I drew as a little kid, they don't make a damn bit of sense because I was a little kid. I didn't know any better. I didn't know how
Right,
any of these
right.
worked. So that was sort of, I have this thing and I'm going to work towards there. And then my thought was, well, he's eventually part of this government super team. What would more naturally lead into that? And I thought, if he was a police officer, that might be the thing. And I think the amnesia stuff came, I'm not sure when or where that came in. I don't remember if that was a graphic fantasy thing or if, I don't know, but.
Right.
I mean, it was a great take, right? You basically say there's this weird looking dude and he doesn't know who he is. So then he basically gets to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Take it from there. I mean, it's his fin in the old comics. It was this little kind of turd that was draped over his head. So I gave him a more proper pronounced fin.
Yeah.
Later on, just because nobody could ever figure out how to draw the other one, and it didn't seem to work from a lot of angles. So, and beyond that, then we did a cartoon, and that was another adventure entirely. We had a couple of us. I had an agent at CAA, and we had pitched Savage Dragon as a cartoon to CBS, and we had a different script written, and somebody else had written a Bible, and they did a whole different approach, and they had invented a bunch of their own characters and inserted their own characters into it. And then CBS ultimately said, no, we don't want this. And so we kind of licked our wounds and decided, okay, well, let's try a different approach. Started working with different writers, put together a different group, and then we chased. I don't know how USA got to be part of that equation, but they did. And then at that point, we were off to the races, and
Wow.
something happened. They picked it up, and we made a cartoon out of the deal.
My
Fun.
goodness.
I mean, it's kind of like every kid, you grew up those. I mean, obviously, Batman the Animated Series was big, and there was everybody was looking, X-Men, and it was just awesome to see. I think Wildcats had a cartoon, and then obviously Spawn had the HBO series.
Season, and then Savage Dragon was on for 2 seasons, so we got 26 episodes of fun or whatever.
Oh my goodness! I have to take a look. Are those still
they're
still out there?
They're out there somewhere in the ether.
Right. Everything's on YouTube, right? Probably if you dig deep enough.
Everything's on YouTube and looks terrible. And then
yes, right.
It's somebody recorded it on their VCR.
Yeah.
Uploaded the videos.
It's really fuzzy and funky looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine because the show is kind of really fuzzy and funky looking to begin with. And I know for a while it was streaming on, God, I want to say Hulu, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
We could do some digging. I'm curious now.
But yeah,
Well, USA, I think, is a NBC network, so maybe it's on Peacock.
Oh, there you go.
well,
Okay.
you're right. It is Peacock. It was Peacock.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
correct.
Well, that wouldn't have been too long ago. So, well, Todd, we're into the final 5 here, and it's funny. The bonus question we have in your question are kind of the same. So, do you want to roll? You want to roll them all in together? Then we had a bonus question from one of our Patreons, who's a buddy of mine, who's a journalist who actually helps me meet people like you. I've done a lot of interviews because of him, but he had a dragon-related question, a Spidey-related question. Then Todd had some that combined all that. So, I will let him do that.
Yes. So this actually fits pretty well. And it's interesting because I actually have a copy of this. Let me bring it out.
Oh boy! Oh, good.
One of my favorite artists is Joe Madureira, Joe Mad, and he did some art for Vanguard, which he wrote. Which I love that to pieces. So it's kind of a crossover, bringing a character in, doing those sort of things. So my question was, with crossovers being really big, we've got like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fighting Godzilla now. There's DC and Marvel are going again with Deadpool and Batman. So if you had your druthers and you could get any character out there to team up with Savage Dragon, would you? And that leads back to Kurt's question is, what about Spidey and Dragon? So any thoughts about that specific
Spidey
one
Dragon
or anybody?
seems like the easiest,
right?
Most like, well, of course we could do this. But if it was just a pure, hey, we want to do a team up and we don't care if it makes any money, I might go something more like Dragon Fawcett Captain Marvel. Just because I was a big fan of that. My dad had 1 million of those comics.
Oh, wow.
But that's obviously not the most commercial choice.
Right.
The most commercial would just be like, yeah, let's do Spider-Man. And I did do a crossover with Superman at one point. So
okay.
That exist in the world.
The other wrinkle of Kurt's question was, if you had your pick of it, would it be present day Spider-Man or would it be the Spider-Man of the 80s and 90s that you worked on? I don't know. Kurt's a weird guy. Sometimes it's kind of different questions.
I mean, yeah, you find a way to make it work regardless. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to draw the same costume in either case.
Right.
Whether he's married to Mary Jane or not probably wouldn't impact the story that much. I mean, there are definitely things that I think are lacking with the current Spider-Man that is like, you got rid of this cool dynamic with these characters that isn't there anymore, and you didn't find another way to replace them with something else. Like the whole J. Jonah Jameson, I hate Spider-Man and you're working for me. It's like that was kind of an interesting twist and interesting dynamic, and it wasn't replaced with anything. You didn't.
That's true. Yeah.
Going, oh, there's this thing now. It's like the times when they've killed off Aunt May, and it's like, okay, but
now
you
what?
replace that with nothing. Now he's not a kid anymore. Now he's essentially an adult, and he doesn't have that character dynamic or relationship with anybody else. Same thing happens in Thor whenever they get rid of Odin for a week and a half. It's always like, hey, there was this guy who was constantly above me that was keeping me in check all the time, and now that guy's not even there anymore. Okay, so what?
What?
How does that? He's no longer a kid anymore, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, maybe that's awesome for all of the 40-year-olds who are reading comics, but there's something missing there. And I think, having your superhero character have somebody above them who's kind of saying, no, don't do that. It's like, all right. And then
it's like when they kill off Professor X, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, you got Cyclops in charge. I mean,
there needs to be that kind of character dynamic, I think, for some of those things to really work.
Yeah.
And you and I understand why they broke up Peter and Mary Jane. That made some sense because having them be married, you lose so much of the soap opera. Will they? Won't they?
Right.
That's all gone once he's settled down and chosen one girl. Whereas you can look over at Archie comics and see that they've been stringing along with Betty and Veronica for
75
See,
years.
that's where I wanted to go. I'm like, it's got to be Archie, right? He's teamed up with the Punisher and everybody. Savage Dragon needs to hang out in Riverdale.
He gets around. He's like Elton John as far as teaming up with people. It's totally crazy. All right. Well, we're hitting time, but I always like to ask on the way out, what are some of your great big projects right now? What are you working on right now?
Well, at the moment, I'm still doing Savage Dragon. That doesn't stop.
Right.
And then for Marvel, I am actually writing a Spider-Man noir miniseries.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love the character.
That.
It's one of the few cosplays I've held onto from my cosplay days was noir. I have a great set. I'll have to toss that on when that show comes out.
The fun thing with him is that he's somewhat of a blank slate, and he doesn't have. So I'm just treating him as though he has no rogues gallery at all, and every character is new. So
right.
That's awesome.
I'm just introducing a ton of new villains, a ton of new supporting characters.
That's awesome.
Just fleshing out his world as much as possible.
I love it. When am I going to be able to pick that up? When's that coming out?
First issue, I believe, has been solicited already, which was not a good idea.
Oh no! Oh man! Well, I'll have to,
guys, we need a little pad here for crying out loud. So
I'll have to look it up and see if it's on solicit so I can
keep it to
a
tight 22, Eric.
Tight 22.
22.
Now Todd's such a big shot. He's giving advice to comic legends. I can't do anything with this guy, Eric. I can't do anything with this guy. Well, this has been tremendous. Where do people find you out there?
Whatever.
Whatever. You find them on
SavageDragon.com? Image.com?
SavageDragon.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on whatever it is, Blue Sky and whatever. I'm not on Twitter anymore.
That's the one.
That's kind of hell.
Twitter's bad. We don't do it either. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this has been great. All right. Well, Eric, my God, thank you so much. This has been absolutely terrific. Patreons, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this on our free feed and you want to hear more great interviews like this one, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Try us out for 7 days for free, etc. You'll be glad you did. Our guest has been Erik Larsen. Eric, thank you again. We greatly appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me.
You bet.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.